Okay, cool.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So, did everyone read that article?
Yeah.
So I think each of you have a 2-minute time to make your argument for your position you're in.
Okay.
So I don't know who wants to start, but
I can start because I believe my role is the public health official from the government.
Okay.
From the Malawi government, if that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have 2 minutes to make my point.
Okay, start timing.
Okay. So I'm from the health department from the government, and I'm believing that my stance is that the principle of beneficence means that we must look out for the safety of our people, and that we are doing that by using herd immunity to protect the entirety of our community. Now, vaccines have eradicated smallpox, they've almost eradicated polio, and have reduced childhood measles deaths by 74%. So vaccines for tuberculosis, polio, measles, diphtheria, hepatitis B, influenza, etc., they save 2.5 million lives per year, and I just want to be able to do that, and with our government as a whole, to protect all our citizens. What we're doing isn't really so different than other countries. I mean, we have a law on vaccinations that you must have them, and if people don't follow it, there are consequences. Just like in the US, there's fines and there's jail. We have the same similar situation. The only thing we're doing is we want the best safety for our community as a whole, and by doing that, we believe that everyone needs to be vaccinated to protect the entirety of our community against deadly diseases.
Okay.
I think I can go next because mine, I'm the representative from the Gates Foundation, and I'm in complete agreement with the government official because as a representative of the foundation, the whole point is to ensure that there's vaccines that are able to be given to people in countries that need them. So our whole idea is to get everyone vaccinated, and if needed, we can use harsh force like gunpoint, which was rare, but it worked because we got 131 kids vaccinated, and the more kids that are vaccinated, the less there are diseases spreading through the country, and that's where the idea of beneficence comes into play from my standpoint. In the foundation, we're trying to save the lives of children and everyone around them, and by doing enforcing harsher tactics, it's working because we're able to get more people vaccinated and save their lives. And we do understand that religious views are why parents may not choose to get their children vaccinated, but we want to respect their wishes, but we can't because of the effect it has on other people. So we just need to take that into account. And yeah.
Okay. So my perspective, which is as a parent who doesn't want to vaccinate their child, is the complete opposite of these two. So, from my perspective, the most important factor is my own autonomy to choose for my child, and I think that any form of restriction on or any force making me vaccinate my child goes against my personal right to decide what's best for them. I think that gunpoint is an extreme example, but even strict laws and fines for parents who choose not to should not be allowed, as well as for the benefit of my own child. I don't want to possibly harm them with chemicals or possibly untested materials that are in the vaccine. I don't necessarily trust it completely to be efficient. I feel like I need more evidence for that, and because of the possibility to cause chronic brain damage or disease for the future, I do not want to expose my child to that, as the possible for harm is too great. Yeah.
Okay. So now I have some questions for everybody. So Anjali, from your point of view, you talked about how giving the shots to individual children will help, like the foundation has to do that because it's going to help the community as a whole and will benefit the community. But how do you see that benefiting a child if that's not their, like, going off of the principle of autonomy, if that's not their decision, like, how is that benefiting them?
Well, I think it's important to take into account that the actions of others affects the whole society and a community. So you can't base you have to take your personal belief out of this, because you need to keep in mind that to not vaccinate your child means to send them to a school where there's other children who can get the disease from them because maybe they're not immune to it, or the vaccine's not working because 1% of the vaccines actually just don't work. And so if you send your child to a school where there's some vaccinated children and some not vaccinated children, there's a highly possible chance that your child will infect someone else if they get infected. So you're putting everyone else's life in risk. So you have to take into account that your actions are affecting others, not just yourself. So you do have to, like, remove your personal beliefs from it and, like, think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, like the broader perspective.
Yeah.
Maddie, so as, like, part of the Malawi government, do you think that it's fair to be holding your citizens at gunpoint?
Okay. I believe yes, because we create the laws as the government, and our government is doing what's best for our citizens, even if they don't realize it. And like any other law, when it is broken, there are consequences from a level of just a little bit of a fine or some jail time to the extreme of gunpoint. And we only are going to that extreme is because of the fact that we feel so strongly about the safety of our community and want to create an environment where there is a lack of these diseases.
So this is like a law that you guys have passed?
Yes.
Okay. And then, Greta, how do you feel about the foundation, like as a parent or from a parent's perspective, making the decision that your child has to become vaccinated, like no matter what, no matter your beliefs or how you're saying you don't 100% trust the vaccines?
I think that parents have complete right over decisions made about their children. I think it is their responsibility to make the choice for what they believe is best for their own family. And having a nationwide law like this completely goes against that. And I think, in particular, holding people at gunpoint is far too much of an extreme way to enforce this law.
Okay. And then, Anjali, back to you.
Yeah.
So your goal, like the foundation goal, is said to be that you want every child on the planet to become vaccinated. But have you thought about how, for like medical reasons, some children can't get vaccinated? Like, would you still force them to become vaccinated in order to help the community?
Well, I think at a certain point, okay, well, good question. The foundation's idea is to give those who can't be vaccinated the opportunity to get it done. And so countries that are like, they don't have as many resources as, say, like the US, we are getting them we're getting people there vaccinated because they're more prone to diseases, and it's more readily available for these diseases to, like, infect them. So I think as a foundation, our goal is to get everyone who is able to get vaccinated. But if for some reason a child's not vaccinated, they'd have to have a really, really good excuse. Like, I don't know what a good excuse for that would be, but there needs to be a good excuse for them not to. But the whole goal is to get every person vaccinated so that the country is safe and shielded from diseases.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answered your question, but
no, that's good. So, like, you believe in, or like as a foundation, representative, you believe in medical reasons to get out of the vaccination, but not religious reasons.
Not religious. Like, you can't bring your personal belief into it. If there's like a medical reason behind why you can't get vaccinated, that's okay if a doctor signs off on it. But religious or like because I don't want to is not a good enough answer.
Okay. Maddie, though you want your state or country to be as healthy as possible, have you ever thought about how you could be doing harm to some individuals by forcing them to get vaccinated? Like, what if kind of like what Greta was getting at, what if the vaccination wasn't benefiting them, or like did the opposite of what you're trying to get at?
Well, I do believe that in very, very rare cases, vaccinations can be triggers for other diseases, or they can be reactive negatively. However, I'm choosing to think of that's the lesser of two evils, and I'm using it's actually a low risk, high reward, because as I said, vaccines have reduced 74% of childhood measles deaths. And they've eradicated all these other diseases that we have seen that were so prominent in the past. Now, I'm saying that the low risk, the rare cases are going to be there, but the overall safety of the community is what I'm considering. So it's basically I'm weighing the idea of the community as a whole over the fact that there could be, and this is a chance that there is something that could go wrong.
Okay, and then last question for Greta. From a family's perspective, do you think that forcing vaccines on a child or your child falls under the principle of beneficence or non-maleficence? Because kind of what Anjali and Maddie were saying is the vaccines are 99% of the time going to benefit the child and the community. So what's your point of view on that?
I think people should be thinking for their own children rather than as a country. And if I believe that there's a possibility for any harm for my child, and I personally decide that that's not worth the risk, then I think I should be able to decide that I do not want to vaccinate my child.
Okay, but like even if a vaccine is or the vaccine that they're administrating is known to be effective, would you want to take that chance to help benefit your child?
Even if it is effective at helping people not contract the disease, it could still also have other negative effects that we don't yet know about, that haven't had the time to surface.
Yeah. Okay. Those are all my questions. I guess we could move on to the part 2, like removing the mask.
Okay. Sounds good. So, we're supposed to talk about our
personal belief on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I for sure don't think gunpoint is the right way to do this, but
yeah, I think it's really extreme, because I understand that vaccinations are important and there should be consequences, but I think threatening someone's life is kind of just erasing the good it's trying to do,
Like, you're trying to save people's lives, and by holding them up to gunpoint because of their personal belief, it's just kind of obviously not the right way to do it, and the principle of autonomy is just not really being put into place right now.
And
I think it would just be traumatizing. If you're a kid and you witness that, it's gonna be that's what's gonna cause real, permanent brain damage. Your parents at gunpoint.
I feel like what they're even trying to do, they're trying to vaccinate kids to help save a life, or help people live, but then they're gonna kill people by gunpoint if they don't get vaccinated. It's kind of not going against their own goal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel strongly about vaccines, but not in the way of killing someone over.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The fact.
But then I wonder if we take in the cultural and religious aspect of it, the reasons why people aren't getting vaccinated is because of like their religious beliefs. And so I feel like a government of a country whose religion, like maybe some religions in that country just does not, like they don't support vaccines, like they should be more perspective, like like more understanding about the like struggles of tossing up the two like religious beliefs and like following the law. So I feel like they need to just like calm down.
Right. Yeah. I think you could like easily enforce it just as well through fines, and also like I think the reason lots of people are scared of vaccines is just misinformation or not fully understanding how they work. Like in about what they do, like injecting your kid with a disease does sound scary if you don't know how it really works. I think it's like informing people that it's actually safe and then enforcing it in a better way.
Yeah, I agree that they should totally, instead of like kind of forcing it on them without even giving them information about it. Like there's definitely a better way to go about that, and also maybe give them more of their own choice or decision to make.
Because like I understand the whole point about like the government is like non-secular, so they can't really take into account religion and be like, oh, like we understand this. But at the same time, like it is people's beliefs. So I think that if they could just find like a more middle ground of like first educating and then saying like, hey, we still need this to be like a law, like you still have to have this happen, and then have consequences that are more like, oh, then there's jail time and there's fines, which are more reasonable and legal, obviously, like, because killing people is definitely illegal. So I just thought if they could find, like, a better way to just enforce it overall and not just, like, the punishment, just, like, trying to fix the problem ahead of time.
Yeah, and I feel like the only issue with fines is, like, the whole idea of this foundation, which is really twisted, is, like, they're going to other countries and, like, enforcing the, like, decade of vaccines where, like, everyone's getting vaccinated, but enforcing fines in countries where their foundation is traveling there to get vaccines to those people there because they don't have enough access seems kind of like it's putting them in a bad like spot, because fines cost money, and obviously these countries there's not tons of people with tons of money, so you have to like take into account that like their financial stability isn't as well as like people in the US, so fining them for not getting vaccinated is almost as bad as like sometimes putting them like killing them because they just might not have enough money to like pay for those fines. So I feel like that's something to take into account.
Yeah. And going back to what we were kind of saying about how they should like be more informed, I thought it was really interesting in the article how like it was talking about the health surveillance like assistants. Like you would think that they're the ones like going in like trying to inform people, but then it talked about like how they spend 3 weeks out in the villages providing the basic vaccinations, and then it went on to say how it was like and just how do these health surveillance assistants make sure that the vaccinations happen? By forcing villagers to get them at gunpoint, which of course is like not even mentioned in the foundation's video or anything.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Are you guys ready to go to talk with the trolley car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I liked doing it. Like, I've definitely heard of it before, but I'd never really thought through all of the different scenarios. So that was like kind of a good way to start thinking about it, like purely ethical dilemmas. But overall, I don't think it really connected to vaccines at all. Like, it seems like kind of, I don't know.
I mean, I kind of see how it connects, because in vaccinations, we're kind of talking about like what happens if one person gets affected and like negatively versus what would happen if the entirety of the population were to contract a disease. So when we're talking about like the trolley thing, it's like, could we save, like what if one person gets hurt versus what if 5 people gets hurt? And it's kind of like weighing the lesser evil of like which is going to save the most amount of people, like what's better for the majority.
Yeah. And I kind of saw a connection between them in the more like broader perspective, I guess, is that they're both situations in the trolley car situation and in this in like the vaccination debate, there's like many different perspectives, and like people have different thoughts about it, but there's not really a right answer, I feel like, because of all the different perspectives, like you can't say no, you're wrong, because like even reading like all of your guys' responses to the trolley thing, I was like, oh yeah, like that makes sense, I can see that, but like I still kind of believe in my thoughts too, so it's kind of tough to get one answer in each situation.
And I think like the idea of people adding on to what you're saying, like people have different perspectives because of either like religious views or like where they grew up, or like I know I use like California, like living in California as like my explanation for why I feel some ways for the trolley car. So I feel like we have to like understand that there is a connection between like taking in other people's perspectives and like what influences their perspective, and like that's kind of what bases our like own ideals on like the trolley car or like vaccines in general. So I do see that connection, but I don't know, it was interesting to start it off with the trolley cars, but yeah.
That makes sense.
Oh, wait, just as like a reminder, what were your guys' perspectives on the trolley car thing? Like, would you pull the lever or whatever to kill that one person? Would you like keep it?
See, I was talking actually like outside of like this, like the conversation that we had discussion board, and it was really surprising to me because one, we always think like, oh, it would be better to save like the majority of the people, but I found that like when I talked to my friends about it, they were less likely to do it when you had to physically push someone onto the track, because it like establishes a human connection that like triggers like your humanity thinking like, oh, this is like directly correlating to me hurting someone, versus a lever is more like mechanical. So you could basically say like, I did what I had to kind of thing. And it's like the blame is slightly like off of your shoulders.
I feel like after reading the question about pushing them, it made me rethink the lever. I realized that it's the same thing. Like at first I was like, oh yeah, obviously pull the lever. But then you think about pushing them and how in the end it's the same result. But I do think it makes it a lot harder, the fact that you're directly acting on the person.
Yeah, because like last year in this like seminar, we were talking about this same like trolley car problem or whatever, and there was like 20 of us, and everyone except for me and one other kid said that they would pull the lever to kill the one person, and like all of their reasoning was because, oh, the numbers, like why wouldn't you save 5 people and just kill one? But then me and the other kid were like, no, like we wouldn't pull the lever and we'd kill the 5 people. And it's like all like guilt, like because you're the one pulling the lever or pushing the person off. Like I couldn't live with that guilt. Like if the trains aren't, or the trolley's already headed in that direction, like why is it like my right to change it, is what I was thinking.
It's kind of like, it would be really interesting if we could, like if this experiment would be like so different if you could remove like guilt, or you could remove like the emotional effect on it. Because if you didn't have any like emotional response to it, like would you even like want to save the 5 people? Like that's kind of like how I'm thinking of. One, it would be so much easier to switch because you wouldn't feel bad about the one person and you'd be saving 5 people. But on the other hand, would you even try to save the 5 people if you didn't have an emotional response?
Yeah.
Because I think the only reason like we can discuss ethics and we can have these conversations is the fact that we have emotional responses to like people, like injustices.
And it's like interesting how like human connection and those connections change answers, because like what you guys were just saying earlier is the teacher, because we had the same situations, and the teacher said, so if the person you were pushing off the bridge was like, you knew them, would you still push them? And everyone was like, no, of course not. But like, then why would you push that one like stranger? It's just interesting to think about. Different.
I think like that's like the third question. Like if you knew the people, or they're like your closest friend and family, like what are you still doing? Like obviously I called my answer really selfish because I don't have a problem at that point pushing or pulling a lever to save 5 people that I'm close with, which I obviously like some people have like a really tough time saying that. But I feel like the way like if you like have a close connection with someone, or you're like you know them, then it's more of like a I feel like I'd have more guilt not doing it than doing it because it's people that I knew and I know. And so if like I could play a role in saving lives of people I knew, I would do it. But I also said for the first one that I would pull the lever because not playing a role in saving 5 people's lives mattered more to me. But now I'm like listening to Kendall, I feel like I don't know, it's kind of changes my views a little bit.
Yeah, just like hearing everyone, like I was very definitive in my answer, like no, I wouldn't pull the lever, but like now I'm like, oh, should I? Like, would I? I don't know. Like, I don't think I'll ever actually have like one answer, but
yeah, because like every time I hear a new perspective, I'm like, you know what? That makes sense. I'm changing my answer, and then someone else, well, you have to consider this. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Changing my answer. It's just like.
And, like, the way I thought of it is, like, if I'm standing in this situation, like, right now, at this moment, I see, like, this whole situation play out in front of me, like, what would be my first instinct? Because you can, like, think about it long and hard and, like, figure out what you're going to do. But, like, in that point in time, like, would you really pull the lever? Would you really, like, throw someone over the bridge to, like, save 5 people's lives? Like, at that point in time, like, I feel like it's just so hard to know what you would do, like, as, like, a reaction to it. But, like, sitting here, like, discussing it and, like, thinking long and hard about it is just, like, it makes, like, it takes out the urgency in the situation, because obviously you're not going to have that much time to, like, think about it in real life. So I think thank God none of us are in the situation, but, like, I don't know.
I like to think that there's, like, a third option. I know it's, like, it's not part of the, like, thing at all, but there's got to be a way you could just, like, pull the lever and then, like, take the person off the track.
Right.
Like, how did they get there at all?
Maybe, like, not touch the lever and, like, create a little device that pulls it for you, so you're not really doing it yourself.
Like, I feel like these situations are ones you'll find in, like, the Saw movies, where you're like, oh, you have to do this in order, otherwise, like, the room's gonna explode or something, and I'm like, well, pause, third situation, how about we do this? And I, like, try to, like...
Oh, rewind? Hold on. Will have to be another way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought someone's answer was kind of interesting. I don't know who it was, though. Oh, God. Well, yeah. I don't know.
I guess to, like, connect this back to vaccinations, like what we were just talking about, like all the different perspectives. There's so many different perspectives and like about the vaccination debate, and like what Anjali was saying earlier about how like being from California kind of changes your perspectives about the trolleys. Like there's so many different backgrounds, I guess, playing into people's decisions about vaccinations, and that can kind of relate to how the trolley car situation unfolds.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, sweet. Do you just like stop recording it on your end, Kendall?
Yeah, I'll stop when we like. Yeah, I'll stop it.
And then you'll just like do we